Royden, thank you for being here. Carolyn, thank you for joining. Both of you are committed to this project in a major way. My curiosity, though, you're committed to this project on a personal level.
I am.
Yeah. So, Royden, tell us a little bit about who you are, who you cared or caring for, and what kind of dementias or dementia is involved.
Okay. Well, my biggest care at the moment is my wife, Martha, and she was diagnosed at age 57 with young onset Alzheimer's.
Okay.
She's still with us. It's over 8 years into the journey now. So I learned a lot. But before that, my mom and my dad had dementia. And I'm not sure if it was ever diagnosed, but they were older.
Yeah.
They were older. I mean, mom died 4 or 5 years ago at age 88. Dad died last year at age 94. So it's a little bit different
Different.
when
Yeah.
it's your parents than your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were active in their lives.
I was.
And
Yeah.
you were present here because you're from this area and pretty much were in this area while their dementia progressed.
Right. So this neighborhood,
This exact neighborhood. Yeah.
I was born in this neighborhood in 55.
Wow.
And my parents lived here the whole time.
Okay.
And I went away to college and came back and moved back to the neighborhood.
Okay.
So I was here. We had care partners, professional caregivers taking care of mom and dad
Mom, dad.
at the house. But I'm right there on the street.
Yeah.
And so it was nice because the care partners cared for them, and so I could just come and visit
And be a son.
and be a son.
And help be a decision maker too
Right.
on care. Yeah.
That's right.
And Carolyn, you.
So I also have had a two-person experience supporting people living with dementia, both my mom and my dad. My dad initially, and he lived with Lewy body dementia.
Okay.
And we cared for him at home. And primarily, my mom cared for him at home until he died in 2012. And at that point, I just became really curious about how to support somebody living with dementia and found how difficult it was to find really good information. So we got another opportunity about 5 years later, where my mom was diagnosed also with Lewy body dementia.
Wow.
So this time I came at it much differently and was able to work with my family to provide the best support possible. And that's
Yeah. How many people in your family?
5 children.
5 children. And you,
So I have a
Royden?
brother and sister,
Uh-huh.
and the brother lives locally. My sister lives in Europe.
Okay.
Okay.
And were your brother or sister involved in your mom and dad's care?
They were primarily my brother. My sister lived
Way far away.
way
and
far away.
Was not.
Yeah. So my
And
brother
in
was a big help.
Martha's care?
So we have 3 kids, and they're in
Okay.
their 30s now, and they live remotely.
Okay.
One lived in the West Coast. Now she's in New York, one in Colorado, and one in D.C. And so they haven't been actively involved in their mom's care, which is fine. But the last thing I want for them to do is to, give up their life to come.
To come and do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we got it.
Well, you got it. You
We
got the
got it.
resources. You got the support.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Carolyn, for you, 5 brothers and sisters.
Yeah, so 5 of us in total. I have
Yeah.
2 brothers, 2 sisters. And when it was caring for my dad, we all just kind of rallied and pitched in to help my mom as we could. Now, I live in Florida. They're all up in Rhode Island. So I would come for week or 10-day periods of time to help out a few times a year. With my mom, I ended up pretty much moving up there with her and staying for about 4 years.
And you're married in Florida.
And I'm
you
married.
had
I have a husband,
job
and
and
a job,
a
and
career
a daughter
in Florida.
in Florida.
And you made that choice to go back and be with your mom.
I did.
Through her dementia.
I did.
For quite some time.
I did, yes.
And you were the primary.
I was the primary, but I will say that, my siblings, we figured out ways to work it out. Everybody pitched in their own special way. We weren't always on the same page, but we managed to get at least in the same book. And
So-
most of the time in the same chapter.
Sure. Okay.
So it was truly a team.
And it was work sometimes
It worked.
to do that.
It worked most of the time, actually.
Yeah,
it worked
but
most of the
it was
time.
hard work sometimes.
It was.
Okay,
It
because that was very different.
Yeah.
And Royden, you are a decision maker pretty much on your own.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's not about negotiation, but it is about, boy, I need more info. I need more data to
Right.
be able to make good choices
Right.
for my wife.
Yeah, and I'm a data-driven, analytic engineer kind of person. That's just sort of the way we roll. And I've run my own business, and so everybody's sort of used to he's just going to be in charge. And Martha has 2 brothers and a sister. Okay, and the sister lives near here, and she's been a big help too.
But you're the decision maker.
The spouse sort of gets the trump card, if you will.
The trump card,
Yeah.
if you choose to take it and use it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you've got that. So I'm curious, I want to ask you a little bit about, you and Martha did a lot of traveling.
We did.
You did a lot of, you always lived here, but you didn't stay here all
Right.
the time. Where are some places that you and Martha used to love to go and go a lot?
Well, we did like to travel, and we like to travel just the 2 of us.
Oh, so just the 2.
We just enjoy being with each other. And from the first year that Emily was born, our oldest, Martha's parents came to us and said, "We're taking your child. You guys should go on vacation. If you want to stay here and work, that's up to you. But we're taking your child."
We're taking the kid. Yeah. For how long?
For a week.
For a week. You have a week. What
Have
are you
a
going to do
week.
with it?
Yeah. And we looked at each other and it's like, Grandma, you know a lot more about kids than we do. So, I mean, we would go to Maine. We love the mountains of North Carolina and Virginia. Go to the beach. We go down to Georgia. We go. Now, Martha was not a really big flyer. She was always a little bit of anxiety.
Seems like you were pretty much on the East Coast there a lot of the time.
But when the children went to college in places, if there was a child at the other end,
she would fly.
We're going.
She would fly.
Yeah.
And that was long before she got dementia.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so after the dementia sort of kicked in, what happened with travel?
Well, for the first year after the diagnosis.
And it took you a while to get a diagnosis too.
We're actually quicker than most.
Well,
a lot of people. But from first visit with the doctor to official diagnosis was only about 3 months.
Okay, wow.
So that's
that
like
is
world
quick.
record time.
Yeah, that is world record time.
So being an engineer that first year, we're going to fix this, we're investigating this, we're going this, and talking to docs. And it took me a year to figure out how I'm going to fix this.
I don't think this is a fix.
Right. So my strategy changed at that point. I decided I want to be the best caregiver I could be. And we wanted to live the life that we had. And somebody told me that you don't know if you have 3 years or 6 years, but one thing you do know is the first 3 are going to be better than the next 3.
Yeah.
So don't wait. And Martha lost her fear of flying.
Oh.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Well, there you go. She no
and
longer
I asked
an
her, it's
issue.
like, how come, you like to fly now? Well, I'm pretty sure the plane's going to go down and we'll go to heaven together. It's like, oh.
Game plan.
Okay, so we went to Scotland. We
Wow.
We went to Canada. We took the train, the Rocky Mountaineer train.
Oh,
we
yeah.
went to the mountains of out in Grand Tetons.
Grand Tetons.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we did that as long as we could.
Okay.
And gradually it just got
Too hard.
harder.
Too hard.
I mean, things would come up like we're in the airport and somebody's got to go to the bathroom. And,
It was before the days of the family bathroom.
well, yeah, you can't always find a family bathroom.
Nope, it's true.
Or if a plane would get canceled and she's going
Oh.
home and we're not going home. So,
Yeah.
so there just came a natural,
It was like time with that.
there's a natural end to that.
Yeah. So as that happened, you were here pretty much with Martha
Right.
originally. And then as her care needed something beyond you,
Right.
you ended up, and both of you have had hospital experiences.
We've had some hospital experiences.
So, and yet you are also representing on the board of a hospital.
Right.
So as both a person supporting someone living with dementia and on a board, Are hospitals good places for people living with dementia?
Let's just say it's a bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had ruled, and it's a question everybody needs to answer,
Yeah.
is, are the caregivers supposed to call 911?
Uh-huh. Yep.
And so, and think about that.
I bet you do.
And it's like, well, if she's in pain
Mm-hmm.
and we can deal with it, you can call 911, but you got to call me first,
Mm-hmm.
because she's not going to the hospital without me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a recipe for disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you were super aware that Martha alone in the hospital, given her behaviors, the way she dealt with life,
Right.
her stress level, she would want to get up and move.
Yeah.
She was not going to stay down unless somebody tied her down, strapped her
much.
down, drugged her up. That would be
Pretty
the
much.
only way she would stay down. And
Right.
even then, she would be trying to get up.
Right. She was on the move. She wanted
That
to
was
go.
just who she was with
Right.
her dementia,
Right.
unfortunately.
Which was different than mom and dad.
Yep.
They weren't
Yep.
flight risk. They were
No.
just very sedentary.
Yeah.
Not so. with
Not
Martha.
so. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it became essential to have a game plan. If she was going to be in the hospital, you were going to have to
Had
be
to be
there
there. Just have to be
24/7
there.
or make arrangements for somebody
Somebody's
she
gonna
was
be there.
comfortable with
Right.
being able to be right there
That's
and
great.
very present.
Yeah.
Not down the hall, not reasonably available, immediately visually present.
Right.
So how many hospital stays did you have with Martha?
We had one in particular
Mhm.
where happened during COVID. A lot of things happened in COVID.
Yep.
By then she was in a care facility.
Mhm.
And because I couldn't visit, the anxiety that she had before the
Mhm.
disease
Was
manifested.
huge.
Yeah.
And even with medication.
So we
to
had some
manage it.
medication, but when the routine changed and I couldn't be there as much,
Mhm.
so she ended up breaking her ankle.
Mhm.
Really, really bad break.
Mhm.
2 surgeries,
Ooh.
month in a rehab hospital.
Mm.
And she required 24-hour care because she couldn't put weight on the ankle.
Uh-oh.
Well, I can't be there 24.
Oops.
So I was able to
And
hire.
she had no idea that she couldn't put weight on the ankle.
Mm-mm.
Couldn't hold on to that info. Wouldn't
Mm-mm.
make sense. Why can't I? I mean, that's ridiculous. And
Well,
didn't
a lot of-
follow directions well.
Well, a lot of pain medication.
Mhm.
You know, for example, going
Bathroom.
to the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's like it would take 3 people
Uh-huh.
because somebody had to hold the ankle
And keep
one
her from
and,
putting weight
yeah,
on it. Yeah.
and get her on the toilet and say, "Go to the bathroom." She says, "I am in the bathroom." Oh. No, you need to go.
I need you to
am.
pee.
Oh,
No, pee.
yeah.
I need you to pee.
Right. And so it was
I
a
don't need to pee
challenge
right now.
because in her.
Yeah.
So it was that was a tough time. That was
Yeah.
a tough time.
Yeah.
But I was able to hire good
Mhm.
caregivers, and we got through it.
You got through it.
But pretty much had to quarterback that medical
The whole way.
because they weren't used to dealing with somebody that
Yeah.
couldn't comprehend.
Yeah. Yeah. And so even though we know somewhere around 50% of everybody living with dementia will end up at the hospital
Yeah.
pretty much most years,
Yeah.
we still don't have hospital training that is considered essential for dementia.
Right.
So we have an acute care setting that's going to see a lot of acute situations
Right.
for people living with dementia,
Mhm.
and there's not a plan, a verified national, international plan for that.
Right.
So a lot of families are having to figure it out on their own.
Right.
So having a game plan for hospital stays
You got to have a game plan
and who's
'Cause-
going to do what.
because it doesn't happen until it does.
Yeah.
And then it's like, bam, okay.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
you need to think about it.
You want to think about it. And Carolyn did. So your story is a
Right.
little different.
My
You
story
had
is a
game
little
plan.
different.
It was. So what happened with
So
yours?
what happened in my mom's situation is she had a week of just multiple falls. Could not keep her upright. No, she had
And with Lewy body is high
Right.
risk for fall, fall.
And
But
just
boy, oh
I
boy.
could not keep her upright, and thank goodness she didn't get hurt.
Right,
But
right.
on about the 15th fall of the week,
Yep.
my
Something's going on
family
here.
and I decided let's just find out if something
Else
happened, right?
is happening. Yeah.
So called 911. They came and picked her up. It was during COVID, but it
Oh.
was after we had all had our vaccines. So
Mhm.
I very naively thought that we'd be able to manage the visits, that somebody would
You'd
be able to be
stay
with her.
her.
Right. I go to meet her and they wouldn't let me in. And I said, she has dementia. She needs me with her. And they said, I'm sorry, you get. So I literally sat in the parking lot of the hospital for 5 hours till the doctor called me and said, we're getting her into the MRI. Anyway, told me the ultimate end was that they detected a tiny brain bleed, and that by protocol, they had to send her to another hospital, and they did it. She was on her way when they told me.
Oh, wow.
Right? So then I'm trying to catch up with her at the other hospital. Keep in mind, now it's been hours since she's had anybody with her.
Who knew her routines, knew what was going on. She couldn't communicate.
She couldn't communicate, or she couldn't communicate well. I mean, she
couldn't communicate her needs. She couldn't communicate information.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway,
she could chit chat.
Yeah.
With the best of them.
Yes. Yeah. So long story short, she stayed in an ER bed for 3 nights. In the end, they said you can take her home, or she can go to rehab, subacute rehab. Here's a list, pick one. Luckily, I had done my homework with a friend of mine helping to look at places for her mom. So I knew if there was this one particular place on the list, that's where I wanted her. And I knew that because they had a rehab, and if the rehab was not successful enough to get her home, they had what I would say was the best memory care in Rhode Island.
Okay.
So I said, okay, that's the one I want. And don't ask me for 3 choices. I went,
that's it, or I'm
that's
not
the
saying
one.
yes.
Yeah. So that's where she went.
Uh-huh.
The rehab experience was when she went to rehab, catatonic.
She was still
drugged out for like 5 days.
And that was, how many days of rehab did she have?
Yeah, she actually had about 2 months of rehab, actually, and she did do better.
Eventually, when she got awake and she could participate, it did go better.
Right.
Did she recover enough to be able to go back home?
No, she didn't. Yeah. And that kind of drove that next decision of the decision that's by the hardest decision for our family ever to make is, do we care for her at home like we did with my dad? Or do we move her to a more supportive environment? And now this is the opportunity, because when you go in that way from rehab, you jump to the top of the waiting list. There's no waiting list.
Okay, so you have a good shot at getting in.
There was one room.
Yeah.
And so she slid right into that room.
So these are really complex and complicated. And the plan ahead thing, you had done a variety of plans. How many families do you think actually have done this kind of homework ahead of time and know the system well enough versus they get caught in this? And without the right support and a navigator helping you figure this out, you're lost.
Yeah.
And how many hospital systems have navigators that are tuned into dementia, would you say?
Certainly not the hospital that I was working with, the 2 hospitals that I was working with. And that was probably one of the many frustrating things. But one of the more frustrating things is that during the 3 days that I spent in the ER with my mom, trying to get anybody to give me any information was just, it was like banging my head into a wall.
Wow.
So,
So that's a change that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Correct.
Clearly. And that's one of the reasons both of you do what you do.
That's right.
So I want to ask you one final question each. The art of letting go of something versus giving up on something. That's for you. And over here for you.
Okay.
It's one thing to have a care team, and it's another to create care opportunities and change the culture of what care can look like. How are you doing that? So I'm going to start over here with letting go.
Sure. I mean, I think I could draw from a number of different examples, but since we're on this, stay with the hospital and the moving to a more supportive environment, for me and for my siblings, letting go of the idea that because we really couldn't support her well at home, we really couldn't, that we were failures, right? Letting go of the fact that we were failures and thinking about it not as giving up on mom, but as providing her with an environment and with people around her that can better support her needs, because she needed a team that was physically present there, not just one person at a time.
Yeah.
A team. And in actuality, her transition to memory care was about as beautiful as one could be. She thought she was home. She literally, when we came to holidays, she would say to us, get us aside and say, how are we going to pay for all these people to eat? We got to, I mean, it was the funniest thing because, of course, the place didn't look anything like our house, right?
But for her, it was all about people.
Oh,
it
and
wasn't
it was
about
so
place.
social.
It was so people for her.
Oh, man. Yeah. I
We
mean,
talk about place, people, props, programming, or
and
possibilities.
it was
for her, it was
perfect to stick with the P. Yeah, it really worked
Yeah.
out much better. Not to say we haven't had bumps in the road along the way, but at the end of
hard
the
stuff.
day,
It was a good choice.
it was a good choice, but it was a hard choice. It was
and to see it as letting go
really
of what
hard.
you couldn't have anymore,
right.
and acknowledging that is a really important thing, to let that go
Yeah.
and not to feel like you're
Right.
giving
We
up on
didn't
anything.
fail.
It's
We
just
didn't
it doesn't
fail.
fit anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So now, Royden, why are you doing all this?
I was fortunate at some point to find a care navigator at Riverside Hospital.
Okay.
And they have a center which is different from the acute care side. So acute care side is, they're focused on fixing people. So we happen to have a center at Riverside to help with aging. And so I was fortunate to have a navigator to work with. And the navigator had been trained by the Positive Approach to Care. And she introduced me to this positive approach to care, to focus on what Martha could do and not what she couldn't do. And she helped me anticipate things. I was ready for things. I was ready for when the police were involved. What do you do? The last thing you really want to happen sometimes is have Martha get in the car with the policeman, and then it's out of your control. So as I think, as I said earlier, the first year I was focused on trying to fix things. And then what I realized was, let me see if I can be the best caregiver I can be. Having learned a little bit caring for my parents, but I just, it was something that gave me some purpose, some meaning. I didn't want this Martha's disease to be wasted. So I had such a great, care experience, and I learned a lot from the Positive Approach to Care. I actually worked with Carolyn on a support group, which was very helpful. Got certified as a trainer through PAC, so I could train people in caregiving. And I just decided, I have the opportunity to pour into this center at Riverside, which is now called the Martha Goodson Center. And we focus on care navigators to walk with people. And we're doing this video series that we're doing right now to give tools to caregiver navigators like Carolyn that can help other people learn the lessons that I learned, the lessons that you learned. Experience might be the most effective teacher, but sometimes
let's not repeat the same things.
You don't have to experience
lessons.
Let's don't.
Let's skip those and move forward.
So this gives me a lot of purpose to honor my life partner.
Yeah, the woman who you care so much about.
I do. Yeah.
So thanks to both of you for all you do, all you've done, and all you will do to change the culture of care.
Thank you.
And thank you, Deepa.
Yeah, my pleasure.